Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the June 14th meeting of the St. Mary's County Planning Commission. Our meeting is being recorded for the public record. Any comments made by anyone present must be recorded as part of that record. Therefore, if you have anything to say, you must come up to one of the microphones provided, or when giving testimony online and by telephone, please give us your name followed by your statements. Your comments cannot be recorded and placed in the record unless they are done in this fashion. You are to direct your statements, questions, and responses to the board only, and we'll direct them to the appropriate person for an answer. Please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Anyone testifying or asking questions during our public hearings will be required to take an oath, and we thank you for your cooperation. Let's see, on our agenda this evening, after a roll call and approval of minutes, our first case will be text number 21-0042 for the Oakcrest PUD minor amendment public hearing, followed by our second public hearing of the evening, which will be number 19-132-002 for the redevelopment of the Lafarge plant and Oakcrest public hearing. And our last one of the evening will be public hearing for Zone 21-0010-29871, and that's a rezoning request for the Charlotte Hall public hearing this evening, followed by anything new in adjournment. At this time, I'll let the board members introduce themselves, starting to my left.
Patty Robrecht.
Howard Thompson.
Joe Van Kirk.
Merle Evans.
Okay, also with us tonight we have...
Kim Summers.
Yep, Ms. Summers is here, Mr. Fazekas is here, and Mr. St. Clair is here as our alternate this evening. He'll be sitting as a full board member.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Please tell me you found that dog, Mr. St. Clair. I couldn't hear you before.
No, sir.
We'll pray for that tonight. Got to find that dog. Okay, and from Land Use and Growth Management...
Family appreciate it.
We will, sir. From Land Use and Growth Management, we have Brandy Glenn, Courtney Jenkins is our planner too, Kathy Garcia is our administrative, and we have the king here with us this evening, keeping an eye on them all. From the video media producer, Sarah Miller is here tonight. From the county attorney's office, I think we have Mr. Neil Murphy. I thought I saw Mr. Weiskopf here too. I just don't see him in, he's, okay. From the Department of Public Works, Mr. John Dietrich is here, and from St. Mary's Metropolitan Commission, Mr. Andy Balkin is here this evening. Chris, I've got all of the names of the people that are here for your groups also. Okay, we have a set of minutes from...
Chris.
Chris Castellanos. How you doing, sir? Not used to having you here, I'm sorry. Saw you with that flag in your pocket and thought you got lost from the parade. And it is Flag Day. I hope it was a good one over there. Okay. We have a set of minutes from the May 24th meeting. Did everybody have a chance to review those?
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion.
Have a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
This is Kim. I second that.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor of them? I'll go down the roll call. Mr. Fazekas?
Aye.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Van Kirk?
Aye.
Ms. Robrecht?
Aye.
Ms. Summers?
Aye.
Mr. St. Clair?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I vote yes. And Mr. Knight, I was just teasing you about being the king, but you are the man over there. Okay, moving right along. Our first case of the evening is going to be the Oakcrest PUD minor amendment. Let me find that amongst these.
Okay, can everybody see my screen? Can somebody on Zoom confirm?
Mr. Fazekas, Ms. Summers, and Mr. St. Clair, can you all see what's on the screen?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Sounded good.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Chair and Planning Commission members. This agenda item is a text amendment request, text 21-0042 for the Oak Crest PUD. The text amendment seeks approval of a minor amendment to the Oak Crest PUD to clarify and confirm the uses that are allowed within the Oak Crest PUD. The site is located at 3 Notch Road and Oak Crest Road in California. The land use is mixed use, moderate intensity, and industrial.
Courtney, before you go any further,
Sure.
I need to swear everybody in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And you can swear that what you have said so far is the truth, nothing but the truth. Anybody that will be testifying on that in the room, if you'd stand at this time and I'll swear you in. And raise your right hand. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all right. The properties are zoned MXM, industrial PUD IP, and have an AE overlay. The minor PUD amendment was reviewed at the TEC meeting held on May 26, 2021. And the applicable St. Mary's County comprehensive zoning ordinances are section 44.4.4B for minor PUD amendments, and the St. Mary's County zoning ordinance that was adopted on May 28, 1974, pages 61, 62, 63, 64, 70, and 71. This concludes the staff report and is entered into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit 2. Chris Longmore is here representing the applicant, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Does anybody have any questions of staff at this time?
Okay.
Okay, hearing none. Mr. Longmore, are you speaking for the group this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. It's very nice to see you here live tonight. It's the first time I think I've been here in a while. I appreciate the time tonight. I will be speaking on this application. We have other members of our team that'll be here for the next agenda item that also relates to this plan unit development. And if I can, just to give some context, I think both the staff report that was presented here this evening and the written staff report shares a lot of information about the idea behind this minor amendment to the plan unit development. So one, just to clarify, we're not seeking a text amendment to the overall zoning ordinance. This is simply a minor amendment to the Oak Crest plan unit development. That plan unit development, as is seen in the staff report and the exhibits that are within it, is a plan unit development that was originally approved in 1990, I believe, is when the site plan, or the what they call the development plan report for Oak Crest Center was originally prepared, and it was adopted by the Board of County Commissioners later that year after the preparation of that report. So this plan unit development has been in existence for quite some time. We've been before this Planning Commission on many aspects relating to it. You may recall we were here less than a year ago, or about a year ago, I guess, where the Lafarge piece that we'll discuss later was brought into the plan unit development. This is the development where we have the movie theater that certainly has been, a good asset to the community and very welcome after years of us, hoping to have another venue like that. One of the aspects that has occurred because this plan unit development has some age on it is that when it was originally adopted, as you can see in Exhibit B to the staff report, the way that it was adopted at the time was and I think the Planning Commission is well aware, plan unit development essentially creates its own set of rules within that PUD, is the commonly used term, where there can be unique zoning regulations that apply there to allow a property to develop in a unique way and uniformly within that development. It's a type of overlay district that is on this property. When this one was adopted in 1990, And this is on page 8 of the development report that's part of the PUD ordinance, as it's usually referred. The uses that were permitted were all those uses in use categories I-1, C-1, and C-2, which of course are not categories within our current ordinance. The enacting legislation that is attached to the staff report as Exhibit A confirms that it's the 1974 zoning ordinance that applied. So you go to the 1974 zoning ordinance, look at all the uses that were in those 3 categories. Those are all the allowed uses within this plan unit development. Obviously, 1974 was some time ago, and there are a lot of new uses, a lot of new types of businesses that have developed over the years. My client has been very grateful in working with the staff in a very cooperative way as we've come in with past applications for development within the PUD, where we will look at a use in the 1974 ordinance, and working with staff, we will find the one in our current ordinance that is most analogous, and that's how they've been able to develop to date. So the Aldi that's been built, the site plan that was developed or that's been approved for the Cheney property there, the buildings that are being built behind the movie theater and the movie theater, we would work with staff to look in the 74 ordinance, find a use that corresponded, and we'd work with staff to go from there. As the Planning Commission knows, there are already buildings being built on one portion of the PUD that are typically called flex buildings that allow different types of uses within them. My client has been very pleased at the great interest that's involved, and I think they're going to be a good asset, both the business in general in the county and certainly the activities that are occurring at the airport right now. They're getting a lot of interest in kind of concert with those activities that are there. The concern that came up with that is it's difficult, they're worried about the difficulty of attracting tenants for those buildings and not being able to say for certain that a particular use is now allowed within the PUD, because some of those uses are newer uses, and we want to make sure we know which modern uses are allowed in there. So we've asked for a minor amendment. There is a chart that was attached, and I have hard copies for the commission if you need them, but there's a chart that was attached as Exhibit C to the board docs report that I can certainly provide copies to anybody here. It should be Exhibit C on board docs. That's where I pulled it down from this evening. That essentially lists the different uses in the 1974 ordinance that were allowed, and then has an analogous use to the right of that in our current 2010 ordinance, so that it's clear if somebody comes in for one of those uses that they are allowed and they are the analogous uses to 1974. We really don't think this is changing the PUD. It's really just clarifying it to meet the modern day standards. I participated in the TEC meeting where I believe all the comments were favorable and had no problems with approving this minor amendment. Staff did review these, and I think all of these, we made some changes based on their input. The only one, we added one of the things that the PUD did as well that was in the 1974 ordinance, there was a category in that ordinance that stated that any similar use that is determined by the county commissioners after referral to and recommended by the Planning Commission to be of an industrial nature similar to the above listed uses. So that ordinance was very broad in the allowable uses within this PUD. You'll see there's only one that we've listed under there was seafood industry, because it didn't really fit into any of the other ones. All the other uses are ones that we think clearly are analogous, but will allow my client to properly market and develop the project going forward. And I think we'll also assist staff, as I know the Planning Commission knows one of the directions land use has taken in recent years is making sure that there are clear rules and they clearly follow the rules that are on the book. So instead of us having to go case by case to figure which modern use matches up with the 1974 use, we thought it better to go through and do an amendment at this time. So we're asking the Planning Commission to adopt the minor amendment and to adopt Exhibit C as an amendment to the current PUD that would clarify the uses that are allowed in present day as compared to what they were called or characterized as in the 1974 ordinance. So that's why we're here tonight.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Longmore from any of the board members?
And we had the agenda was in a different order before, so in our site plan tonight, there will be some notes about the history of the PUD a little bit. So I was planning to do it after that and didn't want to bore you with 2 PowerPoints, but if you have any questions about the history of the PUD, I'm happy to answer those as well.
So Chris, this will include everything now?
Everything within the plan unit development. So that would include Lafarge, and it would include the Cheney site that already has a site plan approved. So those uses are kind of standalone, but it would include the entire plan unit development.
So nothing else needs to be added to the plan unit development, like, Lafarge and the concrete plan, everything had to be,
Right, all that's already been done.
everything's been taken care of?
Yeah, everything's already within it now to do. Cheney was already in it before. It got developed prior to my client having any interest in the PUD. They then purchased the bulk of the plan unit development. And then when, during the development process, as we mentioned last year when we were here, of the Cheney site, the former Cheney site, the Lafarge site became an option that my client pursued to work with in a separate partnership, but decided to work with that. That's what we have the site plan here for tonight. So these rules would apply to that. The original site that was Cheney before, and then the rest of the plan unit development that my client has controlled for some time now.
Yeah, when we get to that, we was talking a little before the meeting, we would appreciate an overview,
Okay.
kind of what's happened.
Certainly, and that'll be part of our.
Okay, yeah, we had just talked about maybe getting refreshed on that, so that'd be great.
Absolutely. We got some good slides we can run through and answer
Okay,
any
thank
questions
you.
when the whole team's up here.
Well, I will tell you, this takes away a lot of the vagueness.
Right.
It's not quite so vague anymore. Did you forget anything? Is there anything that you?
Sure hope
you
not.
think?
I'll be sweating a little bit. My client's behind me.
No, that's okay. I mean, and I guess it really goes to show that, these documents, being as old as some of them are, it's beneficial for them to be updated and upgraded and all those things. Because of the use of the buildings, and this really, I have no issue with the PUD, but industrial properties in the county, are we still short industrial properties? There was a time where we were pretty short with industrial properties. Then we went to the Election Park Development District Master Plan, and we identified some. Do we know, are we short before this or after this, or do anybody know? See no hands.
Yeah, I certainly can't speak to that county-wide. I'm not aware one way or another. I will say that my client has expressed to us that they have had a great deal of interest in the buildings that are being built right now as well, and they're similar to that are here before you for the site plan.
Yeah.
So there've been a lot of people interested in that type of use.
Right.
Heavy
And I-
industrial, I'm not sure of.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of it has to do with where they are now and where perhaps these properties would be in a better place for them,
Right.
proximate to what they're doing, that kind of stuff. The other side of that is, if they are renting properties today and they're moving someplace else, creates vacancies. And that's why I was just asking about the industrial property. It'd be interesting to know also about the vacancy rates with regard to these kinds of properties in the county. Not that that affects what we're doing here, but I think it's information that probably would be beneficial.
I think that'd be good. Hopefully during the comprehensive planning process, we're getting into
Yeah,
that.
well, and that's, yes, we're getting
Great
into
part of
that, and so a lot of that information probably should be addressed there, I guess, too. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Any other questions from any board members? Okay,
No questions.
okay, thank you. All right, this time I'll open it up to public testimony then.
Oh, well, this is not a public hearing. There won't be any public testimony.
Other two.
Well, it says it on my agenda. We'll just cross that one
Right.
out. Okay, well, that's good. That's even better for you, Mr. Longmore. Okay. So if there's no questions, is there any other? Okay. Is there any other questions or any discussion? Anybody like to come up with a motion?
I think there's a sample.
Go
In
ahead.
the matter of PUD Amendment number text 21-0042, Lexington Exchange, AKA Oak Crest Center, having accepted the information provided by the applicant and staff report, and having made a finding that the objectives of Section 44.4.4.b of the comprehensive zoning ordinance have been met, and noting that the reference project has met all requirements for approval, I move that this minor PUD amendment be approved.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Van Kirk.
Discussion.
Okay.
Mr. Longmore mentioned when he spoke that we may also need to adopt Exhibit C. Would that need to be in the motion? I mean, it may say it in there in so many terms, but will we need to add that as a friendly amendment
Would you take it as an
to
amendment?
adopt?
We would request that, because the original chart that we presented with our letter was changed based on the staff comments.
Okay.
So the Exhibit C to board docs is the correct one. I have a paper copy, should the board want it for the record, or I can give it to Ms. Jenkins so she has that.
Would you take that as an amendment to your
I do.
motion? Okay. Do you still second that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll vote now. Mr. Fazekas?
Aye.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Van Kirk?
Aye.
Ms. Roebuck?
Aye.
Ms. Summers?
Aye.
Mr. St. Clair?
Aye.
And I'll also vote aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Longmore. Okay, do you want to stay up here, or are you going to?
I'll let staff do their, then I'll jump back.
Okay. Our second piece this evening is a public hearing. Let's see, this is going to get the Lafarge. Courtney, are you going to do that also?
Yes.
Go ahead now.
Okay, the next agenda item is concept site plan 19-132-00002 for Lafarge redevelopment. The concept site plan seeks approval for 126,360 square feet of office and warehouse buildings. The site is located at 23,350 Three Notch Road in California.
Courtney, before you start, same people are going to be testifying for this. I saw your face and I knew I'd forgot to swear people in again. So I got to swear people in again.
Sure.
It's coming up one more time too, so get ready for it. As long as I can see her face, I'll know. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements that you may give or have given will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
The land use is industrial areas, and the zoning is industrial AE4 with the Oak Crest PUD. Seeking for use type 63 office, which includes offices or of firms or organizations providing professional, executive, management, or administrative services such as architectural, data management, engineering, interior design, graphic design, real estate, insurance, investment, law offices, physicians, dentists, or chiropractors, including medical and dental laboratories incidental to the medical office use, emergency medical care offices, and communications facilities located entirely within buildings. This classification excludes financial institutions. And for office use type 80 for warehousing and storage, it includes long or short-term storage of goods or materials produced off-site within an enclosed building prior to their distribution to wholesale or retail outlets, except in the OPB zone, includes wholesaling and distribution center facilities with sales of goods on site. It excludes discount clubs and similar establishments engaged in retail sales of bulk items. firms or organizations that provide professional, executive, management, or administrative services. Oh, sorry, for some reason that had double basted. So the regulations for the industrial district provide and protect sites for industrial uses and office uses. It is located in the Lexington Park Development District, which are primary growth centers of Lexington Park and Leonardtown, which are urban and pattern-informed, designated for intensive residential, commercial, and industrial development, supported by a priority for provision of community facilities, services, and amenities. The public notice for the Planning Commission public hearing was published in the Southern Maryland News on May 28th and June 4th. The property has been posted in accordance with the CZO requirements, Section 21.3.3. Certified mail receipts have been received and have been entered into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit 1. The agenda was posted on the website on June 7th, 2021. The concept site plan was reviewed at the TEC meeting held on January 23rd, 2019. Office and warehousing and storage are permitted uses in the industrial zoning district and require site plan approval. For all non-residential and multifamily residential projects that require major site plan approval, a concept site plan shall first be approved by the Planning Commission before the major site plan may be processed for approval by the Planning Director. This is a public hearing which enables all who wish to provide information to the Planning Commission. In order to approve the concept site plan, the Planning Commission shall make the findings that the proposed development is consistent with the comprehensive plan and applicable functional plans, may be served by adequate public facilities as required by Section 70.2.2, will promote the health, safety, and welfare of the general public, will adequately developed recreational and other community amenities are provided in accordance with the comprehensive plan and the comprehensive zoning ordinance, and is consistent with Chapter 62 design objectives. This concludes staff's report and is entered into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit 2. And representing the applicant is Greg Hosendorf with Soltez, as well as Chris Longmore. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Is there any questions from the board members at this time?
Okay, and the applicant has provided a presentation as well, and I'll be happy to pull that up.
Okay. Mr. Longmore, okay. Whoever needs to come up, come on up.
Good evening again, members of the Planning Commission. Thank you again for your time and attention tonight. By way of a brief introduction of kind of our team members that are here, Ms. Jenkins mentioned some of us that are here tonight. Andrew Rout is sitting to my left at the table. He'll have a few just initial remarks about the project and the status of where we are. Ken Finley, one of the project engineers with St. John Properties, is also in the room, and Mr. Rout is with St. John Properties as well. Nicholas Brader will be doing the primary presentation. He's a project engineer with NJB Engineering out of Towson, who will be presenting the actual site plan tonight. Greg Hosendorf, I believe, is on Zoom and will be here to answer any questions with some of the engineering work that he's done as needed. We also have Jackie Chandler in the room with us tonight, who is a traffic consultant with Traffic Concepts, Inc. out of Hanover, Maryland, who's done a lot of the traffic work on the project and can answer any questions that the board may have. And again, my name's Chris Longmore with Dugan McKissick, and Longmore here as legal counsel for the applicant. So I'll turn it over to Andrew just to make a few opening remarks, and then we'll start our slides after that.
Yeah, good evening. My name's Andrew Rabb with St. John Property. Thanks for letting us come down. been here 10 years now. It's been a real hard slug, but I think we finally made a breakthrough. And as you see, evidenced by the flex buildings that are going up and the amendment to the PUD tonight, we think things are really starting to move. The cinema's been in operation for about 5 years, I think, 4 or 5 years. Those poor guys have really had it tough, but from what I understand, they're starting to get some more traffic now. And Aldi, they're expanding a little bit, so we're starting to see things happen. As far as I can't tell you about some of the activity on the flex buildings that are coming up, but we have had very good interest coming in. I heard one of your earlier questions, Commissioner Evans. We don't really think there is much competition to the type of buildings we're building here. They are kind of new. That's why we tried to harmonize the use table with the tax amendment. We have a tremendous amount of them throughout the state, and they seem to be very successful, especially for businesses that are starting out. You tend to get a little business come in, do 2,000 or 3,000 square feet, then they grow to 4 to 8 to 12, and they just start growing. So that's kind of the concept. Just wanted to thank everybody again. Staff's been great to work with. They have been the entire career I've had down here. So just want everyone to know that, and we've been working well with staff.
Thanks. Okay. We can move into our PowerPoint if that's right. Mr. Rout will be here for any questions on behalf of St. John Properties, along with Mr. Finley. So I don't know if the slides are ready. Or, I don't know if they're on. Oh, okay, I'll see. I can look behind me and catch them. So if we go just one slide before that, if we could, Courtney, I believe. There we go. Or no, one more. Okay, so just to run over a little bit of the history of the PUD and kind of how we got here tonight. As mentioned in our previous agenda item, the plan unit development documents were originally adopted in 1990. There was, in 2004, a minor amendment that this planning commission, in a different iteration, approved that clarified the site planning process, which is essentially to follow our modern day site planning process to come before you with any major site plans like we are tonight. As you'll recall, on May 11th of last year, the Lafarge site was brought into the plan unit development by a vote of this commission. It is now part of it, and we are here tonight seeking a concept site plan approval in accordance with both the plan unit governing documents and the minor amendment that set forth that we follow the current process for major site plans. If we can go to the next slide. As the Planning Commission is well aware, that criteria for a concept site plan are the 6 criteria that are shown on the slide now. In order to approve the site plan, the concept site plan tonight, the Planning Commission makes the following findings: that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and applicable functional plans, that it may be served by adequate public facilities as required by Section 70.2.2 of the zoning ordinance. Item 3 is not in effect, as I think the Planning Commission is well aware, as the county annual growth policy is not in effect, and this is not residential development as well. The 4th item is that it will promote the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. There's a 5th, that it be adequately developed, have adequately developed recreational and other community amenities, and that they're provided in accordance with the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance. And finally, that it's consistent with Chapter 62 design objectives, again, of the zoning ordinance. So that's a criteria that we need to meet this evening in order to receive concept site plan approval for the project that's before you. If we go to the next slide, and I'll begin this slide, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Brader to walk you through the actual site plan. The next slide that is up now is kind of an excerpt from the original plan unit development report. As you can see on that, the original PUD boundary was in red and yellow shading, and then the Lafarge site was incorporated into it last year. You can see that in green shading on the slide that's before you. And with that, I'll ask Mr. Brader to step up, and he'll start walking you through the site plan. But that is the portion of the PUD that we're here to see concept site plan approval for this evening. So Nick.
Good evening, everybody. Oh, that might help, yeah. The screen doesn't work, does it? Or
I don't believe it's on.
They're not on tonight. It does work, but ours aren't turned on. Like
Fine power.
it's on, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I was scared to touch it.
Great, thanks.
I'm not good with technology, and it's been a year and a half since any live meetings, so please forgive me.
Please bear with us.
Okay, so the next slide is an aerial photograph showing all the surrounding uses and the entire Oak Crest PUD. It does work. Okay, it's on that one. Can you go to the slide before that, please?
Can I interject?
Yes.
This is Mr. Fasigas. I cannot see what's being projected. I just see Oak Crest Center, LaForge, the letter A, and it's a very long screen there, but I cannot see what's being projected for all of us to see.
Okay, let me try again.
It's like a sliver of what was being presented. I don't know if anybody else who's remote has the same problem.
I'm having the same problem.
I am so as well.
Okay, great. Not just me then.
Oh, there we go.
Okay,
That works. Thank you.
sure thing. Thank you.
Next page, please.
Thank you.
Okay, this is an aerial photograph of the entire area showing the Lafarge site sort of off to the left side in color. You see Three Notch Road kind of going up and down on the sheet there with Wildwood Center on the opposite side. The South Star site, and if you look really closely, the proposed improvements that were already got through the planning commission are in there. The existing Audi is below that. The cinema going to the right. And then just beyond that, it shows the three buildings that are currently under construction that were approved, I don't know, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that are the same types of buildings as what we're in for tonight. Next slide, please. This is another aerial photograph, kind of zoomed in a little bit more, showing the Lafarge site and showing actually a bit of the cleanup of the site that had been started subsequent to the paving operations that are out there. Next slide, please. This is more of a zoom into the site. The three beige or brown buildings are one-story buildings, and again, similar to what's under construction and was approved previously further back in the site. The parking with all the little lines are out in front, and there are loading areas in between the first two buildings and then behind the last building to allow for the flex uses that were mentioned previously. And then beyond that is the cinema again. Next slide, please. These are photographs of the types of buildings that are currently being constructed out there and what are proposed for this site as well. They're one-story, brick construction, and kind of you can see in the bottom middle, there's a functional loading aspect for the uses that require it. Next slide. This is an architectural rendering of the front and side of one of these buildings. You can see the doors that allow for multiple tenants on the top view. So the building can be divvied up either one user or users every 30 feet if needed. Next slide. This slide shows the rear elevation and another side elevation. Once again, it shows doors at grade elevation on the left side of the building, and on the right side, it drops down for a loading dock for like a regular tractor trailer kind of truck, just to allow for all the multitude of uses. Next slide. This is the first sheet of the actual concept plan that was submitted and is recommended for approval. Lots of notes and words showing that we meet the requirements of the PUD and the zoning ordinance as applicable. And it shows the site really small in the middle there, but it's probably hard to see that. Next one, please. This slide shows the existing conditions of the site, and it shows, I don't know if it's too clear on the screen, but the areas that were paved already are shaded. About a little over 8 acres of the site was already paved. Next slide, please. This is the actual detailed site plan, showing the 3 buildings again, all the proposed contours and utilities. There's existing water in Oak Crest Road, and there's an existing sewer line that we're tying into that goes back to a pump station that's at the end of the road as currently constructed, opposite the cinema. This plan shows various cross-sections through the site, and at the top, the little rectangles are the buildings. This is actually drawn to scale, so you kind of see the relationship of the one-story buildings, and that there's not too much grade differential over this site. This is our concept stormwater management plan. Per stormwater management regulations, the site is considered as redevelopment, which means it's over 40% existing paving. As such, as for redevelopment, we're required to treat the equivalent of 50% of what was out there now as paving, and then any paving beyond that would have to be treated at the full requirements. And in order to accomplish that, we have 14 microbiome retention facilities and 1 submerged gravel wetland facility. The full required volume is being provided. As far as the outfall study, we studied 3 downstream outfall points and showed that the change in flow and velocities were minimal with the development due to the large amount of existing impervious area that was on the site. Next, please. This is our concept sediment control plan, showing how dirt will be managed when it rains, directed to sediment traps and silt fence. This is just a concept plan, and there'll be a detailed plan that has to get approved by soil conservation when we get to that point in the process. This is our concept landscape plan, which shows the required landscaping, all the circles in between and adjacent to the buildings, or trees and shrubs. Next, please. These are details and notes for the actual planting of the trees and shrubs. This plan shows a blow-up of the stormwater management facilities, and they have special plantings that are required. So usually we do a little detailed plan for that. Okay. This is a plan meant to illustrate the sidewalk walkability between the various sites in this area. The red lines are proposed sidewalks that St. John Properties, through various partnerships, are either being built or will be built. The blue line, just southwest of Three Notch Road, is proposed by others, and I believe the county is working to develop plans for that. The dashed yellow lines represent existing...
Can I interject at this point?
Certainly.
Go ahead, Mr.
Hello?
Fazekas. Go ahead, Mr. Fazekas.
Yeah, this is Mr. Fazekas. So I'm looking at your slide here, number 21, proposed sidewalks. Will this be built during this, if this project is approved? Will this be built during this process?
Some of the sidewalks are already being built. The 3 buildings that are under construction in the back, the sidewalks aren't quite there yet, but they will be shortly. Those buildings are being built.
So to clarify, who is responsible for building those sidewalks? Is it you?
The sidewalks in red are various partnerships of St. John Properties. They're the common element in all the partnerships, and that's what's being proposed to build now. Obviously, the sidewalks with the 3 buildings.
Yeah, see, I'm not comfortable with that. Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that.
I'm not
You're
sure.
showing sidewalks that could be built. And for me to approve this project, I want to know that these will be built. So what's your answer to that?
I'm trying to answer in the affirmative to answer yes to your question. The sidewalks, there are different sections associated with different projects, but they're all proposed to be built. So the answer is yes. The sidewalks in the top, the northeast corner of the plan are being built with the buildings that are under construction. So when those buildings are finished over the course of the next several months, those sidewalks will be installed. Working down the plan, the colored area, the three buildings that you're here for tonight, when those buildings are under construction, and we still have to go through a process to get the final site plan approved for that, but when those buildings are built, those sidewalks will be built.
Okay,
There's another section that's
that's
in
all I needed
red.
here. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
You were going to say there's another section in red?
The other section in red, thank you.
Sure.
The other section in red will be constructed with the road improvements that are going to begin this summer along 235 that are the actual mitigation improvements for the Cheney and Lafarge sites. And that sort of ties to the next slide, unless there's any other questions on this one.
No, go ahead.
This is the last slide, and just to illustrate, as I said, I'm out of practice at live meetings, and half remote and half live is even an extra challenge, I think. But thanks for your patience. This slide is an illustration of the road improvements. The improvements shown that are shaded in red are already constructed and were part of the first phase of the Lexington Exchange traffic agreement that allowed the construction of the Aldi, the cinema, and the three buildings that are under construction in the back. And the approximate cost of that work was $2 million, and as I said, that's already existing. The work shaded in blue is the mitigation improvements for the Cheney or South Star site and the Lafarge site that we're here for tonight. And those are slated to begin construction this summer at an estimated cost of around $1.4 million. To the right of the sheet, the area shaded in yellow are the next phase of traffic improvements that'll be needed once additional construction or whenever the square footage requires that per the agreement for the Lexington Exchange site in the back. And the developer's already initiated construction plans, and they're at about 30% for that part of the work. So it's underway, and it will be delivered when enough buildings need to be permitted that require that level of improvements. Altogether, if you add up all three pieces, and that part would be about $2.2 million based on the preliminary estimates. And if you add it all up together, when the entire project, the PUD, is finished, it would be about $5.6 million worth of improvement.
Quick question. The blue that's going to be added
Begin
this summer, begin this summer, that's another lane?
I'm going to defer the specific traffic improvement questions to the traffic engineer, just
Okay.
to make sure I don't.
And if
blow the-
you can finish and I can come back, I only asked because you brought that slide
Oh,
up.
sure,
And
that was the last one.
If you had some more, you can.
Oh, no, that was it. That
Oh,
was
okay.
finished. So.
Well, we might as well stick
I mean-
on that while the slide's up.
Okay. So the actual construction with that.
Ms. Chandler, you want to come up?
Yeah, just want to see what that blue includes.
Sure, certainly.
Good evening.
Hello.
For the record, Jackie Chandler with Traffic Concepts. Yes, that blue will be the extra third lane. So it will get the third lane through the intersection of Oak Crest to tie into what Wildwood is already constructed for their phase 3.
How far north does it go?
It'll go all the way up to Airport ultimately.
But not here. It's not shown.
Correct. This stops at Bollywood to tie into what Wildwood is doing to go to airport. The missing link,
But that's not you guys.
correct. We're tying into what Wildwood is doing to get that third lane further extended through the Oak Crest intersection. So the only missing link for the extra third lane will be about 400 feet east or south of Oak Crest down to where it starts at
Airport.
near Route 4.
So it'll be a gap of 400 feet from airport, wherever it stops at Bollywood.
That's being done by Wildwood, Phase 3.
Okay, I'm confused because,
He didn't understand where your missing link is.
Right.
no, I understand what you're saying, but Wildwood could do that at any time. Doesn't have to be done right now, so we're still going to have a 400-foot gap. Is that true or not true?
I'm not sure of the status of Wildwood's improvements. I may defer to Mr. Dietrich.
And I can come back to that question. The only reason I'm asking is because I thought that when the concrete plant was added in and redone and approved for what it was approved for, it included the third lane all the way to airport. Is that not true? Is it a different recollection that, from that meeting that we had a while ago?
It was stopping at Bollywood, from what I understand.
Okay, I didn't know.
And Wildwood had that.
I remember that.
Wildwood had that little piece.
Yeah, these are the same plans, I believe. The slides and the plans that we prepared tonight tied into the slides and the plans that were presented for the Cheney site when we proposed that. If you recall, there was a new traffic study done for those two sites together that indicated what the improvements would need to be in order to do that. That was in addition to the recorded APF agreement that related to the property that St. John's Properties has had for 10 years now.
Correct.
So they need to do everything in that agreement as they take down properties and build businesses within the prior portion of the PUD that they own. For the concrete plant and for the asphalt plant, this was the approved mitigation that was done that will tie into what Wildwood's doing. So it will eventually go all the way to the road where the airport is and tie into Merville Dean. But that was the portion that was the mitigation that was approved for those two sites or called for in that traffic study.
There was a section of the PUD documents that illustrated a chart of when the PUD reached X amount of trips, this had to be done, XYZ had to be done. When it reached another level, ABC had to be done. And I know that third lane was a part of one of those, and I understand this is redevelopment. But, so, I don't know if Ms. Chandler or who can tell me at what level of the original PUD are we at with the trips? I mean, we're well past the first section, I remember, whatever I think it was A, B, and C or something. When you reach B, this lane had to be constructed to, I thought, airport.
That's great. The first one has already been constructed, actually, and I can pull the agreement to help clarify on that, unless Jackie, you have the specific numbers.
If I might, that agreement doesn't even apply to this site, because this site wasn't part of the PUD at that point in time, so this site wasn't part of that. The improvements in blue were specifically associated with the Cheney site, which was part of the PUD, but not part of that agreement. Part of the agreement was all a part in the back of the site. So blue was just for the Cheney and Lafarge sites by themselves as their mitigation.
But as things get done, not on these two specifically, then that will have to come to fruition if Wildwood, for some reason, postpones it. I don't know what their, what the plan of that is or the status of that, but
You're correct.
eventually somebody's going to get caught with doing that.
Mr. Dietrich, do you have any information on the Wildwood part of it? Okay.
And I might be able to shed a little bit of light.
Could you give us your name and address, please?
Ken Finley, I'm with St. John Properties. The original traffic agreement was put in place for a concept plan for the Lexington Exchange site.
Please speak into the microphone.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
It's too low.
You can have a seat, sir, and use the one right
Our regular voice from above has come back.
Can you hear me?
Sir.
Yeah, the original traffic agreement was put in place for a concept plan to do development on the Lexington Exchange site. It was for a certain amount of trips for the Lexington Exchange site only. The South Star concrete plant site was not part of that. And then, of course, the Lafarge asphalt part wasn't even part of the PUD. Before any development could happen, the first phase of improvements, which you were alluding to, needed to be done before you could pull any building permits. That was the first phase that's in red on the slide that we proposed. It was about $2 million. That was done. Building permits were pulled. In that agreement on Lexington Exchange, before you hit, if you were to go over, I think it's 1,005 trips on the Lexington Exchange site only, you would have to do the third lane from near Route 4 all the way to Airport. That has not happened yet. There's only been the cinema, Aldi, and now the 3 flex buildings, so we're not near 1,005. Meanwhile, Wildwood, other developments have happened in the area, including a partnership with St. John Properties that involved the South Star and the Lafarge. When we came in with those concept plans, South Star and now Lafarge here, we explored what improvements could we do, our share. And it was determined if you do a portion of that third lane, which is shown in blue at 1.4 million, you would do your appropriate share of mitigation for those. And so that is what we got approved plans, and we're starting that work this summer. We actually have spec sheets into SHA to improve all structures and all materials, and that work should be starting hopefully in the next month. So that was the mitigation to be done for South Star and Lafarge. We still have the criteria. If we hit 1,005 trips, that third lane needs to go from that certain amount of distance on the Lexington Exchange site. So once, we hope we continue to have a lot of activity out here, and as soon as we get to that amount of trips, St. John Properties is going to be responsible for that work. I was under the impression from beyond the blue towards Airport has been designed, approved. I thought it was under construction by Wildwood. I don't want to misspeak. I don't know for sure. But I thought, that was something we right now are designing. He's kind of shown, on our slide, we've kind of shown the yellow, but that goes all the way down to almost FDR. And that's the next $2.2 million worth of improvements that we will be responsible for once Lexington Exchange.
What you're talking about stops just slightly south.
I think there's a third,
and that's where it stops.
I think there's a third lane already, and it sort of merges in. There's enough widening, so we will do a third lane all the way down to where it'll be a seamless. Everyone wants the seamless third lane all the way through.
And it could be, and I don't know, nobody knows here apparently tonight, that piece, that 400 feet that we're talking about, may be part of some sort of a mitigation phasing for Wildwood. But I don't know that to be true.
I feel like I knew it one time, but it's been a while.
There's been work at the intersection, and I think some kind of curbing was put in, but it doesn't look like it was enough for a lane. I didn't really pay attention whether things would be restriped, or maybe it is. I just didn't. It looked like it was a lane.
It took 5 years to get the intersection built. So, I'm not.
The median was supposed to get a little bit skinnier at that point, and I think that's when
we are doing some widening into the median just to avoid right-of-way acquisition, which takes time. So if we can avoid right-of-way acquisition.
So you guys just haven't met your trip numbers to include that lane that runs from 4 to where you guys are.
That's right. Yeah. So when we came in with the partnership on these 2 sites, we were able to propose mitigation for them and actually get a jump on that third lane for the county. But we still have an obligation on Lexington Exchange once that whole back area starts getting developed that we will have to do additional improvements.
And does it get a bit more convoluted with regard to a hotel that's in between?
Well, I think, and again, Jackie can speak to that, but I think theirs is going to be a left turn at the Oak Crest and the Wildwood, and then some stuff.
They're going to build the portion of the extra third lane along their
That's what I was getting to. I mean, you guys have committed to doing that because of your numbers.
Right.
But then we have a hotel that is going to have to probably make a contribution.
Yes.
to that. Okay.
Yeah, when we had
We've
to
had-
have that site, because I bought that.
Right.
Plan and it.
And, you know, I have
shows-
to say, just one question with you, Ted. We struggle to get any kind of comments from the state road at all. You guys somehow got 12 pages. How'd you manage that? Honest to gosh, I'm reading it, it's like, wait a minute. I mean, everything is addressed in these 12 pages.
Yes.
We don't ever get that. What have you done? Do you get along fine with them?
They have all new reviewers. So.
Oh, I heard, oh, yeah, somebody told me they had all new reviewers.
Yes.
Oh, good. Cross Ts, dot Is. They don't show up, but.
Well, the new folks, they want to follow the manual and everything exactly by the book, so they go back to the book and they write all their comments.
That's not good for you.
No, it works well.
Well, I understand. Well, 12 pages of comments, all you got to do is go through and check them off. But we could never get comments. We can't get them. You know, what about this? What about that? What about something else? You know, we just,
Well,
and now.
I think you guys you respond quicker. They need more time to generate their 12 pages of comments.
Yeah, well, there's that.
All right, thank you.
Don't mess it up now.
This is Mr. Fazekas, and my biggest concern is just what is going to be down on the ground when this project is developed. So in other words, do we have any assurance that everything shown in purple will be both approved and on the ground the day that this project is fully realized? Hello?
She's coming to the
One second.
mic, Mr. Fizik.
Jackie Chandler again. Yes, this will have to be bonded through a state highway access permit before building permits will be released.
So,
The construction is due to begin this summer for that work, actually.
so what I'm hearing is that this project could be built without these highway improvements unless the planning commission puts restrictions on the project that limit the fully operational status of these projects until these 235 improvements, approved by Shaw, are in place. Is that correct?
Did you understand?
Like, in other words,
We have somebody coming to the mic, Mr. Fizikas. I'm sorry, I know you might not be able to see.
thank you.
Yeah, yes, hi, Ken Finley again. This state highway work is already approved in purple. The bonds have been posted, and we are already having material being approved by state highway for us to order it and have a pre-construction meeting. So this work is going to begin, we hope, it could be weeks, definitely, I would assume it'd be started within a month. So this work will be done it'll be done before we even have final site plan approval for the Lafarge. We have a lot of engineering still to do for the Lafarge property. The SHA work will be going in this summer. And I believe there is there is a requirement tied to the South Star in order to do development on that site. I think the frontage work had to be done in front of the South Star site before we could do one of the pads, and then it had to be completed prior to doing the other two pads. So there was a similar requirement put on at the time we went through the South Star development.
And this is all being done in conjunction
Okay.
with the construction that's ongoing right now on 235. I think they're preparing for you so that when
Well,
blacktop goes,
I would like to say that is true, but
Would like to-
unfortunately,
I would like to
just
too.
like anything, SHA knows we're trying to do a pre-construction to have all that work done, but they decided to mill it, and now we're going to overlay, and it'll probably sit there with new blacktop for maybe 2 or 3 months, and then we're going to come through and do our work and probably have to mill and overlay the whole thing again.
Not to anger them, but they could be such
Yeah, we just don't want to. Yeah, I just don't want to see a repeat of the Harris Theater, where on St. Andrews Church Road, the development of the supermarket that preceded the highway improvements, and we just had almost 2-year-long debacle on getting the traffic through and through that intersection. So, I'd like to see that this highway development and improvements are done prior to these properties are
Now they won't.
fully operational. Basically, that's all I have to say.
No, understood. And like I said, there is a requirement, I believe it's tied to the use and occupancy for the South Star site, which is approved. We have final approvals for that. We've already done some grading out there, and we're optimistic to have some tenants starting construction of their uses. It could be as early as this summer if deals are made. So there is obligations to get that work, the SHA work completed, so that we can get tenants in on that front South Star concrete plant site.
Yeah, and I think those things you just talked about
Wonderful.
are among these 12 pages from your friends at SHA. And the other part, with Mr. Fasikas, that's right, with Harris Teeter, the reason for that was it was tied into use and occupancy permits. There was no upside for them to move forward very quickly because people were already in their buildings. And I probably shouldn't say that out loud, but that's actually what happened. So in this case, that's not the case where you guys are, because your use and occupancy are all tied in.
Yes, we have to
And it's
have,
done.
we have to have the frontage work done.
Right.
Prior to the first pad, and then all of it done prior to the other 2 pads.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Is there anything else, Mr. Longmore?
That was our prepared remarks, but certainly our team's here, available to answer any further questions of the planning commission.
Okay, is there any other
Mr.
questions?
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
sidewalks again on 235 down to Lenny's, or it used to be. Out on the 235, is there a mention? I can't tell by the drawings.
The sidewalks on 235 that are shown on the exhibit, I'm not sure if remotely you can see in red along 235, that will be constructed this summer with the 235 improvements that we're going to be doing, that we were speaking to a second ago.
That just goes up to the
Okay, I
Hollywood
wasn't able
property.
to zoom in on.
Yeah, that doesn't go as far.
Okay.
Howard, I have one more question, just very quickly about
Thank
the
you.
elevations. The buildings, the elevations of the buildings, are they going to be at the same elevation by and large as 235? My concern is that they're built lower than 235. I know there's three spaces that are developed by other people. When we did Park Place, there was a real concern about people driving by and being able to look at mechanicals and all that stuff. And I don't really want that to happen. I don't want to, and it looks like the buildings are constructed with some piece at the top maybe that obscures that. I mean, I don't know. But I don't want to anybody drive by and have a really nice looking development and having to look at air conditioning and heat exchange and all the rest of that mess on the buildings. We have some of that now, but we're trying desperately for that not to happen, moving forward. So
I believe it's a small rise near the highway, but then it goes at a very gradual slope back to
We did exhaustive studies just to prevent exactly what you're saying, and
Yeah,
actually
okay.
changed the grading up on the Cheney site and submitted a full revision so that the sight line was more regular than having a sharp drop-off at the end.
Right, and I mean, I know that these are just renditions. I mean, I understand that the photographs here.
The one's actually to scale. The one.
Well, I understand that, but what I'm getting to is that this appears to be, the gray appears to be above the buildings looking down. You don't see the mechanicals like I'm talking about.
There's actually a roof screen on the plan that's up there right now, actually, if you see it at the top of the building.
I did see that. That's what I was talking about. Right,
That's
right,
always
right.
planned, and it's been a concern for years, and we look at that at the beginning design of the site.
Great.
Because actually, we had a site like 15, 20 years ago that everybody was shocked when they drove up and saw exactly
Saw
what
that
you did.
mess? Yeah.
And since that point in time, we've studied sites, and with St. John Properties, they very much care about that.
And then developers try to mitigate it by putting up some after-the-fact sort of thing with braces and stuff.
It had to be done a couple times.
Well, I understand, yeah, I mean-
that, But now it's designed up front, and that's
Up front.
why you see it on the
Yeah.
elevations, actually.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, appreciate it.
Good question.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, hearing none. I get to open it up to public testimony. This time, if there's anybody that has any statements they would like to make, we're going to check our phone line.
This is Kathy Garcia. We have no public comment at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody in the room? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public testimony and open it back up. You heard all the discussion, Chris, Mr. Longmore, for the, what was going on. Was there any other, we'll close that part up and just open it up to the board for deliberations. I think that the applicant has shown what they have in store. I'll say 99% of our questions were able to be answered. As far as the road goes, maybe staff can check in with Wildwood just to see where they're at with their part of it. Because it would be nice when y'all do that, it would be nice to have that one little stretch of road, a regular stretch of road for a while. It'd be very nice. Sidewalks were discussed. We got that down. It's going across, it's going to link up with Wildwood across the street, which will benefit them greatly because a lot of people would like to be able to walk, go to a grocery store, or go to the movies, or go to Royal Farms, get some chicken. So it will work. Is there any other discussion from any board members? Any opinions you want to put out there? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion if somebody'd like to make one. Mr. Evans?
In the matter of concept site plan number 19-132-00002, Lafarge redevelopment, having accepted the staff report and having made a finding that the objectives of section 60.6 of the comprehensive zoning ordinance have been met, and noting that the reference project has met all requirements for concept approval, and move that the concept site plan be approved with the following conditions. Any road improvement required by the state or county must be concurrent with the issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Roebuck. Okay, voting on the motion now, Mr. Fazekas?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Van Kirk?
Aye.
Ms. Roebuck?
Aye.
Ms. Summers?
Aye.
Mr. St. Clair?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Okay, we look forward to seeing y'all's project come about.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay. Let's get up to this third one. Charlotte Hall. Let's see. Mr. Longmore, you are a very busy man tonight, sir.
I missed you all. I wanted to.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Your partners are darn proud of you tonight, sitting home watching you work.
I feel they might be doing something else right now.
Yeah, well, we won't discuss that. Okay, our third case of the evening is a, let's see. Anyway, it's a public hearing, number 21-0010, for 29871 Three Notch Road. They are requesting a review of a zoning map amendment to change the split zoned property from residential mixed use and town center mixed use to entirely town center mixed use zoning district. Let's stand up and swear at one another again. Okay. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Can someone confirm on Zoom for me, please, that they're able to see the slideshow?
Mr. St. Clair?
I can see it.
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, agenda item 3, it is a zoning map amendment request, zone 21-0010 for 29871 Three Notch Road. The zoning map amendment seeks approval to change the split zone property from residential mixed use and town center mixed use to entirely town center mixed use zoning district. The site is located at 29871 Three Notch Road in Charlotte Hall. The land use is mixed use moderate intensity and residential mixed use. And the zoning is residential mixed use and town center mixed use. The regulations for the residential mixed use district provides opportunities for residential, office, personal, and business development and services subject to standards that will ensure land use compatibility with adjacent residential areas. And the regulations for the town center mixed-use district provide opportunities for residential and commercial development with town centers consistent with the comprehensive plan. Standards are intended to create an urban character and make the core area safe, pedestrian-friendly, and visually attractive. Per the comprehensive plan, town centers are secondary growth centers that are urban in pattern and form and designed for moderately intense residential, commercial, and industrial development supported by provision of community facilities and services. Town centers are located at Charlotte Hall, New Market, Mechanicsville, Hollywood, and Piney Point. They are designed as growth areas that are secondary to development districts where infrastructure should be provided to support densities of up to 5 units per acre and where mixed-use development should be encouraged. Excuse me. Master plans should be generated for each of the town centers to ensure that visual and functional qualities of development adheres to standards for landscaping, architectural design, on-site and off-site advertising, access, lot coverage, and open space, and buffering from adjacent developments and transportation corridors, and allow for and provide adequate buffers to avoid conflicts between different land use types to provide visual screening. It should discourage strip development and restrict direct access onto Three Notch Road, Maryland 5/235 in Charlotte Hall, New Market, Mechanicsville, and Hollywood. The public notice for the Planning Commission public hearing was published in the Southern Maryland News on May 28th and June 4th. The property has been posted in accordance with the CZO requirements, Section 21.3.3. Certified mail receipts have been received and have been entered into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit 1, and the agenda was posted on the website on June 7th, 2021. The zoning map amendment was reviewed at the TEC meeting that was held on April 28th, 2021. The neighborhood of the subject property for this application request is in Charlotte Hall along Route 235, 3 Notch Road. The property backs up to Charlotte Hall Road. The area includes a major transportation corridor with existing commercial and industrial development. Nearby businesses include Frito-Lay, Southern States, Tiger Structures, St. Mary's Landing, and MedStar Medical Group at Charlotte Hall. The Farmers Market and Auction and the Charlotte Hall Shopping Center are located across the street, and the location of the property is in the Charlotte Hall Town Center per the zoning map. Per the applicant request, the subject property is split zoned, creating different rules and allowable uses on the portion of the property that fronts 3 Notch Road from those rules and allowed uses on the back portion of the property that fronts Charlotte Hall Road. The split zoning of the property makes it much more difficult to develop and market the property, and the applicant also believes that the split zoning and split land uses is a mistake that occurred with the last land use map changes. The applicant is also requesting that the proposed zoning, due to the change in character of the neighborhood and the surrounding area where the property is located. Again, the property is located within the Charlotte Hall Town Center, and this area of the county has seen and continues to see significant commercial development over the past decade. Per the St. Mary's County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance 21.2.2, amendments to the zoning maps or text of the ordinance, the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners shall each hold at least one public hearing on an application for an amendment to the official zoning maps. Such hearing may be held jointly at the discretion of the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. And then per 28.3.2, review procedures by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission shall promptly consider applications for an amendment. The Commission shall conduct a public hearing for map amendments and may conduct public hearings for all other amendments.
Motion.
Generally, within 60 days from its final hearing, the Planning Commission shall transmit its recommendations for approval or disapproval to the County Commissioners. And this concludes staff's report and is entered into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit 2. Chris Longmore is here representing the applicant, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have a comment.
Mr. Evans?
In the staff report, Courtney, under the comprehensive plan, pages 4-1, growth areas, my comments aren't new for me. We are talking about, our development districts, Leonardtown and Lexington Park. And then our secondary targets are the town centers, much of which don't have infrastructure to support what we say we want there. To go further, village centers have actually less. We say we want them, and in this document, in the current document, we use the word should be provided, should be generated. There's a lot of should be's. As our community moves forward, providing infrastructure in areas where it makes sense to put development that's managed, I guess would be a good word for me, I guess. And that doesn't come without expense. And I think that over the long term, people see infrastructure as a short-term expense rather than a long-term investment. And I think that the county, moving forward with this new comprehensive plan, needs to reword this at some level, because clearly the town centers that are designated here, most of them will never get the infrastructure that we say we want there. And so we either need to re-identify them as something else, as village centers maybe. I don't know. It will give us less places to go, but perhaps maybe infrastructurally, we can get infrastructure, roads, sewer, water
Sure.
to these places rather than talk about putting all these things in the hinterland.
Sure, and I think that's something that can be evaluated as we're going through the comprehensive plan.
And I understand that.
Sure.
But very seldom does this come forward that I don't make this speech. And I've been saying this over decades.
Sure.
So
Well,
it
and so
just,
now's an appropriate time.
well, it's appropriate for me now because I'm not going to make comment on what's coming up. I'll make comment when it comes here. So anyway, just my perspective. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board members have any questions or of staff? Okay, hearing none, go ahead and open it up to the applicant. Mr. Longmore?
Thank you again, and good evening again, members of the commission. I'm happy here to be here with you this evening to present this request. I will note that Mary Chambers, the trustee for the trust that owns the property, is here today and available for questions as well. I do have a PowerPoint that I hope is up on the screen and can be seen by the planning commission members that are not here
Can
in
somebody
person.
on Zoom please confirm they're able to see the slideshow? Thank you.
I can see it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So if we go, I'll run through these slides, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions about the property or our request tonight. If we can go to the second slide, please. So a summary of our request is that we're here to seek an amendment to the zoning map and the land use map for the subject property, which is located at 29871 Three Notch Road in Charlotte Hall. As mentioned in the staff report, this property is currently split zoned with the rear portion of it, or the portion that fronts to Charlotte Hall Road, being RMX, and the front portion being zoned TMX. The land use map likewise has the property split into two different land use categories, which is often the case, as I know the Planning Commission knows, that they often match the zoning categories or similar to that. So the split land uses right now are mixed use, moderate intensity, and residential mixed use to essentially match the zoning categories. The applicant is requesting that the zoning map be amended so that the whole property is zoned TMX, and similarly that the land use map, so that is consistent with that request, be changed to be designated as mixed use, moderate intensity over the whole property instead of just a portion of it. Some of these slides will be repetitive, but I thought it may be useful if the board had any questions. This is an aerial photo from the county GIS map. You can see the subject property there. It does have some structures on there that you can see that I believe have been used as a type of market in the past, but it is not in great use right now. But that's the existing property by aerial photo. If we go to the next slide, this is a blown up of the property showing the zoning map. So you can see the TMX property that fronts Three Notch Road to the right portion of the property as shown on the slide. And then to the left, the portion that fronts Charlotte Hall Road is zoned RMX. I will note you can see the property immediately, I guess to the south is the best way to describe it, is fully zoned TMX as we're asking to be zoned. And I'll also note that you'll see there's two properties to the north of this property. The one that is on Three Notch Road is either fully zoned TMX or all but fully zoned TMX. You can see how the map cuts across the back of it there. The property that is actually zoned RMX there, for point of reference, is the Frito-Lay Distribution Center that's located there. And I will note, and we think that while maybe not directly applicable to the standards, it does show somewhat of a potential mistake in the original zoning. That use, I believe that's probably a non-conforming use at this point in the RMX. It's more of a commercial use than is typically found in the RMX. So even though our property would now be adjacent to an RMX property, essentially the use there is a commercial one. So we think that the TMX would be an appropriate zone because of that. If we go to the next slide.
Hey, Chris?
Yes.
While you're here for a quick second.
Sure.
The properties to the north, where you said the Charlotte Hall Road versus the Three Notch Road, it's two separate properties, right?
Just to the north of our property, it is two separate properties, yes.
How many properties to the north are split zoned? Is this the only one, or you didn't check any further up to see if it was?
I didn't go further up. I believe there are some to the south that are split zone on the other side of the full TMX property as you get further down, as it gets into less dense zoning, outside of Charlotte Hall. But to the north, I don't recall seeing any, but I didn't go much further than the slide that's there.
Okay.
I know that there is at least one that is fully TMX, the site that's under development for the shopping center there, right across from the fast food places, the one where they've done a lot of the site work and grading, and they've done the road improvements to go into that. I believe that's all TMX there, so that goes all the way to Charlotte Hall Road once you get up that far. So if we go to the next slide, it'll show the current land use map, and you can see that essentially corresponds with the zoning categories. And again, it is a little different, even though the property below us is fully TMX, some of their land use is a little different in the back there. So we think that to be consistent, it would be appropriate to amend the land use maps. I know the county has been much more conscientious, as many members of this planning commission lived through with the Lexington Park Development District Plan to make sure that the land use map is consistent with the zoning category. So that's why we're asking for that change as well. So if we go to the next slide. So the amendment process, and this is touched upon in the staff report as well, but just for the benefit of the Planning Commission and any members of the public watching tonight, we're essentially in the middle of that process right now. We were required to submit our application to the Land Use Office. The ordinance requires that the planning director confirm that it's complete, and then it goes through a review of the TEC agencies. As mentioned, that review was done. Again, I participated in that hearing, as I did in the hearing with the applicant that was prior here. There were no negative TEC agency comments, and we're here tonight for this request to be reviewed by the Planning Commission. Once the Planning Commission reviews it, you then have the opportunity to provide a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners to either approve or deny our request, at which point we would go and request a public hearing before our Board of Commissioners, and they would hold a public hearing and an eventual decision of our request. So again, we're at that bolded and underlined step here tonight. If we go to the next one, this is, I believe, language that Ms. Jenkins quoted as well, but the review by this board tonight is to review the amendment, conduct a public hearing that we're here for tonight, and then after the hearing, transmit your recommendations to the county commissioners. So this is the direct excerpt from our zoning ordinance for the role of this commission in the process. If we can go to the next one. Now, the standard for doing zoning map amendments, as I know that this planning commission is probably well aware, it's essentially a standard that is called the change or mistake standard. And there's case law in Maryland, there's a lot of case law that addresses this. Essentially, we need to show that there was a mistake in the original zoning of the property, or the last comprehensive rezoning of the property, rather, which was done in 2010 as part of that process, or that there's been a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood. Provide an example of a case site of one of the cases that cites that for the record. And then as to a mistake, which is, we're claiming it under both of those standards. We think we can meet both of them with this particular property. But as to mistake, one thing that I think is worth noting is that when the presumption is, essentially we have to overcome our presumption that the original zoning was not correct, or that was correct rather, so we got to overcome that presumption. But the Planning Commission, the Board of Commissioners eventually apply a more liberal standard when you're reclassifying from one commercial or mixed-use subcategory to another one. So if we were taking this from RPD, for example, and asking to go to TMX, that would be a much harder standard to prove to show that there was a mistake. But when you're going from one subcategory, such as a commercial, or in this case, a mixed-use category, to another mixed-use category, it's a much more liberal standard, and the Board of County Commissioners has more flexibility in approving that request based on a mistake. So that's one of the case sites that cites that. And I'll note that that case was actually a St. Mary's case. I enjoyed reading that Judge Kenny and the Honorable Ernie Bell were both the attorneys in that case. It was fun reading it and preparing for tonight. So if we can go to the next slide. So as to the mistake in the original zoning, we'll note that split zoning is generally disfavored And I recall during the Lexington Park Development District, and I don't want to overstate this, but during that process, there was a great deal of care that this Planning Commission, ultimately the Board of County Commissioners, took in finding properties that were split zoned within that district and making sure, to the extent it could be, that they were put under one zoning category. There's some minutes that I reviewed in preparing for tonight and some presentations by staff that included that. And I noted the language in our zoning ordinance. It's not prohibited. I don't want to suggest that it is. But one of the reasons why it's disfavored, in my opinion, is that where a property is split zoned, the rules of the zone apply to each portion of the land. So you can look at our property. It's a very narrow piece of property. There's one set of rules on the front, and there's another set of rules on the back. And it's not just the uses that applies to. It's all the setbacks. It's all those other requirements that go in there. So you really have kind of two sets of rules on the same piece of property. When they're very large properties, sometimes that can be done with relative ease, but given the property, the size, location, and the narrowness of our property, we think that supports the idea that this was a mistake. We also present that there's really no good policy reason for this split zone property. As mentioned, when we were looking at the maps, the property to the south is fully zoned TMX. The property to the north that fronts 235 was zoned TMX. And the one property that's adjacent to us to the north that is zoned RMX is developed with a commercial distribution center that's really more of a use that would be in a TMX zone than an RMX zone anyway. So we think that for those reasons, in looking at this, that it was a mistake to split zone it as opposed to zoning it fully TMX. If we go to the next slide and the changing character of the neighborhood standard, essentially we have to show that the neighborhood where this is located has changed in character since the time it was zoned in order to warrant the zoning map change. There is no set definition of neighborhood. It's kind of like a lot of case law. It's dependent on the facts. In very rural areas, it says it can be miles. In an urban area, it may just be a block or half of a block, depending on how a neighborhood is defined in the area. We think a reasonable interpretation of this that I think coincides with what was presented in the staff report from our submission is really that corridor from Newmarket Turner Road up to about Mohawk Drive, where there's been a lot of development within the Charlotte Hall Town Center. It has been extensively developed since 2010. It's probably been one of the areas of the county, at least from my perspective, that's been more developed than others during that time period. And I've given some examples of development that has occurred since the last rezoning, including that medical office building that was mentioned in the staff report. There's the fast food structure across the street. I think it was the Dairy Queen across the street that's been constructed since that time. The VA structure was just done. And again, there's the large project that's being done with the grocery store and other potential uses that's been fully graded and has some road improvements that have been done that's only a few properties to the north of our property. So for those reasons, we think since the last zoning, should the Board of County Commissioners not find a mistake in the original zoning, they very well could find that there's a change in the character of the neighborhood, and we think there has been one, that instead of having this be split zoned, it should be fully zoned TMX. Again, we're not asking for a new zoning category. We're just asking to make this one property fully zoned in one category being TMX. So if we go to the last slide. So the summary of our request is that, the split zoning of this property we believe was a mistake, and it makes it very difficult to develop and to market this property with two sets of rules that apply to the property. It's hard for either applicants or potential buyers to know what can be done on the property, how much open space, how many setbacks, all those rules, how they're applied. It's very difficult for my client to either develop or market. As to this property in particular, we don't believe there's any good policy reason for it to be split zoned in this area, especially given the zoning and the uses on the adjacent properties. The character of the neighborhood shifting to that standard in this portion of the Charlotte Hall Town Center, we believe, has substantially changed in the sense that it's been more significantly developed since the last rezoning. And we think that the primary evidence of that is the significant commercial development in the area, in this area of the Charlotte Hall Town Center. And we believe that really that portion is along 235. We're not suggesting that the whole town center has changed where it would all have to be rezoned, but particularly in that area, given the development there. So I'm sorry, on the last slide coming up, the requested action that we have for you tonight is that you recommend to the Board of County Commissioners that this property be rezoned so it is no longer split zoned and instead is entirely zoned TMX. And along with that, we request that you recommend to the Board of County Commissioners that the property be redesignated from being split designated to being fully designated as mixed use, moderate intensity. And that's a presentation that we have for you. Again, Ms. Chambers is here if you have any questions. This really is more of a, requested action that it be recommended to the county commissioners, of course. They would be the ones that will ultimately have to decide whether they agree with us that it should be rezoned. But we would very much appreciate a favorable recommendation in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Longmore. Does any of the board members have any questions of Mr. Longmore at this time? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and open it up to public testimony. Do you want to check and see if we have any call-ins?
Okay.
This is Kathy Garcia. We have no public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and close public testimony. I don't believe you have any rebuttal for that, so I'll close that and begin deliberations amongst the board members. It's been our mission to take care of this split zoning as it's going along. We've done, I think, a pretty good job with it, especially in Lexington Park. We got a good workout on it, on that. It's something that just needs to be taken care of, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I would, only comments I would have would be that if it is our intent for Charlotte Hall to be a town center, we went through the Lexington Park Development Master Plan, to fix those. And my guess is, had we years ago moved forward with a master plan for Charlotte Hall, but I know there was pushback. Some people wants to be on, person wants to be on the right-hand side of that line, somebody, and doesn't want to be on the other side. So you wind up with split zoning a lot of times. And so I'm not opposed to this. If this were a master planned town center, it likely would have been taken care of before we're here. That would be the chances are. But given where we are, I believe that taking away that split zoning is the right thing to do. With the codicil that I also believe that doing comprehensive planning for these village and town centers is vitally important. It's just going to cost less money to develop village and town centers than it is to run pipes and things all over the place. So I'm not opposed to I'm not opposed to this. Again, if it had been master planned, I think it would have been taken care of. But it wasn't, so I'm not going to be opposed to this. I think it's the right thing to do.
Anybody else have any comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll accept a motion if somebody'd like to make one. Go ahead.
In the matter of Zone 21-0010, 29871 Three Notch Road, having accepted the staff report and having made a finding that the objectives of sections 21.2.2 and 28.3.2 of the comprehensive zoning ordinance have been met, and noting that the reference project has met all the requirements for a map amendment approval, I move that the map amendment rezoning request be approved by the Commissioners of St. Mary's County.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr.
A second.
Okay. All right, I'll go down roll call. In favor of the motion, Mr. Fazekas?
Aye.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Van Kirk?
Aye.
Ms. Robrack? Ms. Summers?
Aye.
Mr. St. Clair?
Aye.
Okay, I also vote aye. Okay, Mr. Longmore.
Thank you very
Good luck
much.
to your client.
Have a nice evening.
Okay, there any other business for the board this evening? Mr. Knight, thank you for coming out and take care of us this evening. Good to see you. You're a good luck man. You got us out of here. It's going to be light when we walk outside.
I made a point not to be sworn in, so I wouldn't.
Okay, you make sure.
Always a plan.
You come back next time. Okay. If there's no other business, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Evans. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye,
There you go.
aye, aye, aye.
Okay. All right, thank you. Everybody have a good evening. Thank you.